Good morning, everyone. It's Lee Henson, president and founder of AgileDad, and it's time for today's episode of the Daily Stand-Up. So without any further ado, let's get started. It's Friday. We made it through another amazing week. This week has just been so awesome. I had an opportunity to teach 2 public courses this week, and I absolutely love when that happens. I got to teach a certified Scrum Master and an advanced certified Scrum Master, and let me tell you, I had some really strong, powerful students. It was great. It was great to see their enthusiasm and their excitement around getting certified. It was also really cool to see how the students engage, not just with me, but with each other. And I think that one of the things I'm noticing as a strength that's happened since the pandemic is students are having an easier time talking to each other. Maybe it's just the walls aren't built up because they're behind a computer screen or there's things going on. But I thought it'd be interesting today to talk about something that someone shared with me. So one of my students this week shared with me, and this is from a motivational talk, obviously, and it's not one that I've written, but it's one that I've often thought about because I've heard this before, but I never knew where it came from. And I don't know that this is the original place that it came from, but this was published back in 2017. And it's a story, and it's a story about what they call the most special bank account. So I'm going to read to you from the story, and we'll talk about it as we go. So picture, if you will, imagine that you have a bank account, and this bank account wasn't just any bank account, but it was a very special bank account. This bank account deposits $86,400 each morning as soon as you wake up. The account carries over no balance from day to day. It allows you to keep no cash balance, and every evening it cancels whatever part of the amount that you failed to use during that day. What would you do? Obviously, any smart investor would say, I'd draw out every dollar I possibly could each day, right? I'd make it as strong as possible to use that money. And I think sometimes we often don't realize how powerful this account is. And I'm sure many of you have already figured out just by the number that I used what type of account this is. We all have this bank account. This bank account is called our time. Every morning, the second you wake up, you get an instant credit with 86,400 seconds. Every night, when your head hits the pillow, it writes off whatever balance is left as lost. Whatever time you failed to use wisely, whatever time you failed to use that day, it goes away. It carries over no balance from day to day. It allows no overdraft protection, so there's no overdraft, so you can't borrow against it yourself. You can't use more time than you have. Each day, the account starts fresh. Each night, it destroys the unused time. If you fail to use that day's deposits, it's your loss, and there's no appeal that you can make to any person to get it back. I think that's interesting, because how many times do we look at time as precious and as valuable as we do with money? One of the things that I also remember, and this was a teaching that I had from when I was in college, and there was an instructor, a professor, who pulled out $100 bill, and he said, okay, by show of hands, he said, I'm going to give away this $100 bill to somebody. He goes, by show of hands, who wants the $100 bill? Now, I don't know about you, but in college, I was a poor college student, right? And $100 went a long way. So everybody raised their hand, right? Everybody wanted that $100 bill. So he crumpled it up in his hands, and he crumpled it up really, really bad, and he unfolded it. It looked awful, but he's like, okay. He goes, who still wants the $100 bill? And everybody raised their hands. He goes, okay. So then he pulls out a tray of dirt and sand, and he poured water in it, and he put it in there, and he swished it around in the mud and the dirt, and he held it up, and it was just gross. And he's like, who still wants the $100 bill? Everybody raised their hand. He proceeded to put it back in a tray and started stomping on it and gnashing his heels into it. He's like, who still wants the $100 bill? Of course, all the hands still went back up. And he gave an explanation. He said, the reason you still want this $100 bill is because it never lost its value. Yet every single day we go through life and we get bumps and bruises, and we get called out or bullied, or there's some type of statement made that that causes us to feel offended, and or that we feel offended by listening to, I should say, because nobody can make us feel anyway. But it's just, we devalue ourselves every single day when our value shouldn't change. Our value should stay the same. And I think that the whole point of this bank account analogy is to teach us that the value of time never changes, but the value of time is always a steady value. There's no inflation, there's no decrease. And what you use, and what you don't. And I think that the point they're trying to drive home is that there's never any borrowing of time. You can't take out a loan on your time again or against someone else's. The time you have is the time you have, and that's it. That's that. I think time management is a major principle in Agile, but I also think time management is just a major principle in life. It's yours to use. It's yours to decide how you spend your time, just as with your money. You decide how you want to spend your money. You can decide how you want to spend your time. It's never the case of someone saying there's not enough time to do things, but it's the case of whether we want to do this thing or that thing with our time. And there was a gentleman who was a church leader, and I remember hearing him speak, and he talked about the choices that we made. And he said, sometimes it's easy to choose when you have a bad choice and a good choice, but sometimes we don't have that. Sometimes we have a good choice, a better choice, and a best choice. And when we ask for guidance, spiritual guidance, sometimes we don't necessarily receive an answer because none of the choices are bad. It's just, it's what you choose. And I think that the three principles that people forget, one is that we have agency to choose. And that ties directly into how we spend time. It's our agency to choose whether we want to do a bad thing, a good thing, a better thing, or a best thing. And this ties directly to both money and time. For time, for example, we can choose to spend our time with our families, with our children, with our spouses. We can choose to spend time uplifting others and being of service to others. We could choose time to be in a spiritual place and help find our center, help get ourselves more centered so that we can be a better person to everyone we come in contact with. None of those are bad choices. It's just, how do you want to spend your time, right? Or we could spend all that time at work thinking that the money that we generate is going to bring the happiness, and that's where we should best use our time. And once again, I'm not saying it's a bad choice, but if you put all those together, good, better, best, there's definitely a good, better, and best choice. The same is true with money. You can spend your money on wasteful things, things that go away, or you can spend your money on things that create long-lasting or lifelong memories. And I just think it's important that we regain that focus, because I think every single day we forget that, we have 86,400 seconds, right? We have 86,400 attempts to make something right. And 86,400, that's a lot, right? I don't know if you're thinking about that, but think about this. So 86,400 seconds is how much time you have in a day, right? So I want to do some math real quick because I want to figure this out. So if 86,400, would put my calculator on the other screen. Here we go. So if 86,400 is how many seconds we have in a day, right? When someone comes to one of my Scrum certification classes, whether it's a level 1 or a level 2, it's always 2 days. So if people spend 2 days with me and they're spending 8.5 hours, so that would be 17 hours times 60 minutes per hour times 60 seconds per minute. That means that people spend 61,200 seconds with me. That's a huge investment of their time. So I ask myself, I challenge myself, am I giving them a good return on investment for that time? And I would argue that I do. I try really hard to make class special for each person that comes. But I think there's one other piece of this message. And this message I'll never forget. It's a story of a young boy. And this young boy wants nothing more than to go outside and play ball with his dad. He got a new a new football for Christmas, and he wants to go outside and toss the ball with his dad. And I think that's a valiant idea, great idea. And every time he asks his dad, they show in a commercial 3 or 4 times he asks his dad, and his dad's like, not right now, or I'm too busy right now, or maybe tomorrow, right? And you can see the dad's completely frustrated and just struggling with work, and things are happening. He's on calls, so the dad's respectably busy, right? And the little boy, he gets a school project, and he asks his dad, he says, can I have a minute of your time? And the dad says, sure. And he says, so what is your job, what do you do, kind of thing, like a typical school project. But then he asks him a very valuable question. He says, how much do you make an hour? And the dad tells him, and this kid's old enough in elementary school to understand what that means. So this kid goes on to wash windows, scrub toilets, do anything in the world he possibly can to earn extra chore money at home. And then he turns around. He brings a jar of change in the room to his dad. And he asks his dad, can I buy an hour of your time to go throw the football? I don't know about you, but that kind of sets priorities straight for me. We all have a bank account. And I think it's important for us to understand that bank account. It's important for us to understand where we stand and how we spend that time. Time's something you can't get back. Time's something that's very precious and very valuable. And I hope that you spend your time building yourself up so that you can uplift others. I hope that you spend time with those people that care the most about you. And most importantly, I hope that you take advantage of every second that you have to live life to its fullest and to not let opportunity pass you by. Because I think when we take advantage of opportunities and we do the right things, that strengthens us and makes us the better person. So I hope you have an amazing weekend, and I hope this story inspires you and uplifts you. I hope it gives you some motivation to get through your weekend. And I hope most of all that you'll share it with others. It's a powerful story. And I thank you for all the moments and seconds that you spend with me listening to the Daily Stand-Up Podcast. We've got lots more great things for you in store next week. Until then, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Time for another call. Until next time, do take care.